If you save the record, okay, save the recording on the cloud if possible.
Yes. Go ahead, Faith.
Thanks.
Good morning, everybody. Happy to see you all this morning. My name is Faith Dukes. I manage our K-12 STEM education and outreach programs at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratories. So that is just above UC Berkeley for those of you who are on campus at UC Berkeley or in the East Bay. We're right above, and I'm by training a chemist, but I am in love with sharing STEM with everyone and with the world. And so my job has included working at science museums at MIT, doing policy work at the National Science Foundation, and now working here at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory and making sure that students like you get opportunities to do projects and research here at the lab. So we look forward to hopefully welcoming some of you, well, first of all of you, as soon as we can have visitors again. We'd love to also have you at the Berkeley Lab site as well. In 2020, we had the opportunity to be the second site for SAGE, and we partnered with Slack to host everyone, all of you who are from 2020 online, but we also hope to have in 2021 a second site where we're hosting a group at Berkeley and Slack is hosting a group at Slack. And we still want to make sure that we have this wonderful community of women in STEM that come together. So happy to be a part of the SAGE community and share the research that's happening here at Berkeley Lab. I'm going to start to talk about our summer internships. And so hopefully if some of you all can give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. All right, great. So I'll just go through a few things today. First of all, just a quick question, why complete an internship? Then the high school summer programs that we have here at Berkeley Lab, as well as some that I wanted to highlight from around the area, the Bay Area that might be applicable to you, and then some next steps and questions that I think you should consider as you get ready for preparing for high school internships. And some of these might be steps that you might take as college students as well in thinking about organizing and getting ready. So reasons for completing internships, they give you access to professionals in STEM backgrounds, and this is allowing you to build your network to make sure that you have people who can guide you, whether that's career or personal advice. They're also great for getting recommendations. So some of you are starting to think about college, or some of you are starting to think about additional opportunities. These are great people that you can ask for a recommendation in the future, especially if you do a good job. They allow a sneak peek into the world behind cutting edge innovation and research. I know a lot of you have the opportunity to do job shadows and to talk with different speakers throughout the SAGE week. And so having an internship gives you a little bit of a longer time period to see what those people do from day to day, and allows you to get access to those people to ask them different questions that might not come up during, say, a career talk. It also gives you a bigger awareness of potential majors, research, and careers. So you may meet someone and you're doing research in a laboratory, but you may meet someone from the finance office or from business or from policy. And that might also pique your interest, and you'll have the opportunity to possibly speak with those people as well. Internships give you access to novel equipment, workspace, and laboratory. So when you're going off to college, you might already have the experience of knowing what it really means to be in a certain workspace or an environment, and you'll be able to bring that experience with you into other opportunities. And finally, it gives you a better understanding of what you don't like. So we talk so much about figuring out what you do like and knowing that, but sometimes it's easier to say, I don't like this. And so I don't want the job that involves this, or I don't want to do the major that involves this. And sometimes it's much easier to understand that than to understand what we do like or what it is exactly for us. And it allows us to make better decisions. So for summer 2020 at Berkeley Lab, most of our programs will be virtual because of the COVID pandemic, we are not allowing the public back on site just yet. And so we have to be mindful of that most of our scientists will be the first people back on staff, back on site. And then we'll allow for the public, hopefully by late 2021, and definitely having hybrid and in-person programs starting in 2022. You must be at least 15 years old, regardless of your grade level. So for those of you who are 14 and seniors in high school, that amazing. I applaud you. But unfortunately, due to legal issues, we cannot have students under 15 if you have not turned 15 as of December 31st, 2020. You must be a US citizen or permanent resident. We are working with some other agencies and organizations to have opportunities for students who do not meet this requirement, but mostly because we are trying to implement paid internships, we do have that requirement. You must reside in Northern California, and some programs require residents within specific counties. So I'll talk a little bit about those within the next programs. And students can apply to all programs, and we encourage all of you to apply if you feel like you are eligible. We have separate teams working on each program, so we're not going to say, oh, this person applied to this one program, so they shouldn't apply to this one. There are different people reviewing all of our applications, and so we try to keep those as separate as possible, so there's no influence between each of the selection committees. But we do want to make sure that as many people as possible have opportunities. So we might do a backtrack and say, okay, if this person's doing this program, then they can't do this other program at the same time. So you'll have to make a decision about which one you're going to take part in. So there are 3 programs that I'll talk about that are specifically at Berkeley Lab. The first one is our Berkeley Lab Director's Apprenticeship Program. And I should say that both Erin and Rebecca and I have made these slides in PDF and shared them with Loy. So you will get the PDF of our presentations. And most of the programs that I talk about on this presentation are hyperlinked. So you'll have all of the links to the programs that I speak about today. The Director's Apprenticeship Program is what we call a pre-internship program. It's a 5-week summer program, and once a month we meet with the students after the 5 weeks throughout the year to talk about different STEM careers, research projects, and skill sets that we think are important. We also do resume reviews and work on essays in preparation for college. This prioritizes underrepresented students, and that could mean racial ethnic minorities, women, and students who identify as a part of the LGBTQ community. This program is for rising sophomores and juniors from San Francisco and West Contra Costa and Alameda counties. And we usually have a cohort, or we are expecting to have a cohort of 20 students. It focuses on project-based learning, so the cohort will work together. So if you don't feel like you're really set on STEM just yet and you want to work together as a group, this is a program that is for those students who are not yet ready for independent research. You do receive a stipend, and we have activities from Monday to Friday. For the application, we will have applications on our site open on February 1st. They will be through Google Forms, and we require 1 recommendation. We'll be asking students to complete a 30-minute interview as part of this program as a part of the selection process. And students will meet as a cohort throughout the year, like I said. Those students who meet throughout the year, that's basically their application to do an internship the next summer. So if you meet with us throughout the year, we have a minimum number of workshops that students have to attend. That automatically gets them a full internship, a paid internship the next year at Berkeley Lab. And then all students are expected to give a final presentation as a part of this program. Our second program is our Berkeley Lab Experiences in Research. It will be 6 weeks and also virtual this year, but we would like this one to be in person in the future, all programs to be in person, but this one will be virtual as well. This prioritizes giving students a broad range of experiences in STEM. You have to be a rising junior or senior, and we are working with the YouthWorks offices in West Contra Costa, Berkeley, Oakland, and we're hoping to expand to a few other counties, but we're going to work through the YouthWorks offices because they are providing the stipend, and we are providing the work site and work project. You'll have an independent project that you'll be assigned to a mentor with. You will receive a stipend. And on Tuesdays and Fridays, we plan to have a professional development and social sessions where you meet with the rest of the students taking part in summer programs here at the lab. Just an example of some projects that we plan to have here. We have about 6 buckets. There are, and actually it should say 7 kind of. So administrative, communications, coding dependent, data science with coding, data science without coding, experimental research and data collection, as well as tech transfer. So some of our offices work on thinking about patents for scientists and or how to get entrepreneur scientists onto market, or how their products are developing. Some of the students will be able to work with some of those scientists who are more entrepreneurship minded. But just some examples. We have our code parts of a data reduction pipeline so that data can be analyzed by the team later to get experience in coding, work with real research data, and contribute to meaningful team's research. Something might be create a short video or design web pages highlighting the team's research, so you get experience in communication, exposed to real research, and increase the visibility of the team's research to the public. And then finally, conduct a study on STEM career pathways. These are all projects that some of our scientists and some of our staff members have already put together. And interns will gain experience conducting informational interviews, contribute to meaningful data collection, and report on outcomes from data analysis. So that could be part of your 6-week program that you help an office with or a scientific laboratory virtually. For this program, the application process will begin in February. You will apply through the YouthWorks offices. We'll list specific instructions on our website, and students will be required to submit 1 recommendation. As a part of this, you'll be working with another high school student that may come from your school, may not come from your school, but we like to have a minimum of 2 students per project so that you can work together, and you're expected to give a final presentation. And finally, this is a program that our K-12 team does not run, but has been at Berkeley Lab for over 10 years. It's called ICLEM, or Introductory College Level Experience in Microbiology. It's an 8-week program from June to August, and it's conducted at our Joint Bioenergy Institute, or JBAE for short. It gives students a broad understanding of biotechnology, microbiology, and biofuels, and you get to complete hands-on research in a laboratory and work as a group. So this is a smaller program with 8 students for the summer and 2 teachers in training and 2 teachers. So 12 total of the cohort that all work together, and you do receive a stipend for this program as well. Unfortunately, this program was canceled last summer, but they're hoping to have it back in 2021 and are accepting, if you click on the link on this slide, you'll have an opportunity to sign up for their listserv so that they can send you an email when the application opens up. We'll also be sending out information when we find out more information about this program. And so I just wanted to put a few additional programs and opportunities. So if you don't look at anything else off of this list, I'd say the first one is super important. It's Bay Area Teen Science, or BATS for short. It is a website that promotes a wide range of STEM opportunities across the Bay Area. They are paid internships, volunteer opportunities, career panels, anything that you basically want to know. Most of the people who are doing work with high school students put that information on the BATS website. So I would highly recommend that you sign up for that. I also have listed the MIT Office of Engineering and Outreach programs. Their MITES and MOSTECH programs are really great and world-renowned, and they're also free. The MITES program has been canceled for this year, but MOSTECH is still taking applicants. And I believe that opens, the application might already be open. Yeah, MOSTECH's programs are already open, and it's a 6-month program for high school juniors. So you apply in your junior year and do the program during your senior year. Biotech Partners also introduces students to biotechnology, and they're a 3-year program, the Stanford Research Internships for high school students. So this is a list of links to Stanford University's high school programs. And then there is the UC Berkeley Pre-College TRIO programs that also introduce students to STEM. The second thing is SMASH Academy is also a 3-year program. This is, most of you are past 9th grade. So if you have a younger sibling or someone who might be looking into STEM, you can share this information with them. I also like to put in here, like I mentioned before in my own background, I did a stint at a museum. And so I really highly encourage science communication and education opportunities at museums and science centers, because they allow you to learn about science, but allow you to really practice your ability to communicate with the public, which is really important as a scientist. And so being an explainer at the Exploratorium or a Galaxy Explorer or volunteering at the Lawrence Hall of Science are all opportunities that are really great for just building your own identity and building your resources and understanding of science. And then finally, I have a list of high school programs at DOE National Laboratory. The list hasn't been updated in a while, so some might be inactive, sorry about that. And then an extensive list of opportunities for high school students. Some programs have a fee listed, but a lot of them are free or provide a stipend. And so you'll have that link there to use. Finally, for next steps, I would encourage you again to sign up for BATS and or sign up for our Berkeley Lab K-12 student newsletter. We'll be sending that out as soon as applications are open for all of our programs. If you are thinking about applying for an internship, one thing I really say is get organized. So make sure, one, check the eligibility. It would be horrible if you did all the work and then look back and somebody says, sorry, you're not eligible for this program. So make sure you're eligible first and check that. Check the application due date. Next thing is, people really, really want you to be a part of this, but don't miss the due date, because we, sometimes can't make accommodations if you're past that and they have a large number of applicants. Make sure you are available for the program. Does the program have a fee or provide payment, or is it volunteer based? This also affects whether or not you can participate. I recommend trying to find those programs that provide a stipend first, and then go to those that are free, and then go to those that are volunteer based, especially if this means you won't have to get a summer job. And then what does it require? The number of recommendations. Do you need an essay or short answer or a parent signature? And will it allow you finally to meet your goals and or make you happy? That's the biggest thing. If you have done computer science just because somebody said it's great and it's good, if it's not going to make you have a great summer, don't do it. Choose the program that's really going to make you feel like you are learning something and earning or getting skill sets and experiences that make you a better person and get you to where you want to be in your career. And as you apply, find the teacher or mentor who knows your strengths. Don't just choose go to the principal and say, hey, principal, can you write a recommendation? Or, somebody that you think is really popular. Go to that person who really knows you and can speak to your strengths and your abilities and doesn't need to be reminded about that. They are the person and the champion for your recommendation and will make your application the strongest. You've already done that in SAGE, where you had somebody nominate you in the first place. So really think about those teachers and recommenders that are going to do that work and think about you right away. Take time to write out your essay and or short essay questions, short answer questions. You've done that before, but really make sure you tell the selectors why you want to be a part of this program, why it works to building your career or building where you want to be in life, or adding to something that you've always wanting to do or explore or discover. Make sure they understand that, because this may serve as your interview. They may not ask to speak to you in between selecting people. So this is your real representative. And make sure you respond promptly to emails about due dates. Again, that's really important. And we talk about that for college as well. Due dates are really important, and we try to get people in as quickly as possible, but make sure you pay attention to that. And so I'm going to end with that. Hopefully it wasn't too long. We'll have questions and answers at the end of the session, but I'll pass it back to Loy.
You actually have a few more minutes. I was hoping you would talk about those last final bullets, which are so important, you know, the thank you and all that. By the way, these slides will be emailed to you next week. So that way you can just click on the links like Faith said.
Yeah.
So Faith, can you talk to those last points?
Sure. As I said, I'm gonna.
And we will have a final Q&A after the second set of speakers. But if you have any just quick questions for Faith for clarification, feel free to do that. But go ahead, Faith, those final bullets.
So those final bullets, and I'll just say from the chat box for Santa Clara County, I'm going to check into, like I said, I mentioned, I'm going to check with more youth works offices. Our main thing is, because we eventually want to be in person, I don't want to tell you if you're 50 plus miles away from Berkeley Lab to apply for a program, and then when we're in person, there's no way that you would be traveling 50 plus miles every single day. So that's the real reason for us not saying certain counties are open for applications. And I would encourage you to look at that full list of students, of programs that are available, because especially on BATS, some programs are going to be specific for Santa Clara County. And then yes, all of the links, everything is hyperlinked. I will go back and make sure that all of the links do work and that nothing's badly linked. But everything that's underlined is linked on the slide. So you'll be able to click on that as soon as possible. Yeah, just going back to those things, I'm just going to reiterate, especially being organized. You all are already super organized and showed up today, so I don't have any doubts about that. But making sure that you are eligible and keeping track of due dates. And I didn't really talk about program dates, but again, when does it take place? If you know that you go on a family trip every year in the middle of July or June, you know, be really mindful of that and see what that means with the program, because most of these programs are only 5 or 6 weeks. So that means they really do want you to be there every single day and for all of the activities. And it's really important. And if you miss a full week, that could derail a lot of the work that you're supposed to do. So be really mindful of that. The one kind of plus I'll say for virtual is that you can do this anywhere. So not to say that you should, you know, fly off anywhere, but you can really do this anywhere as long as you are accessible and you work with your mentor to talk about specific times that you meet, and you can be a part of any of those programmatic activities that are required. So this year you can kind of go on your family trip and just say, I'm going to block off this time during these days and be in front of the computer, and then I'll be with my family. So that is one benefit of the fact that we are virtual this year. When we're back in person, it will be much harder to say, I'm going to go to, you know, Florida or somewhere else and still be a part of the program. So again, just make sure those program dates work out.
Faith, just real quickly, it looks like a high school program applies at this time to freshmen, sophomores, and juniors. So if you're a senior, is it kind of too late and you should be looking at college internships?
Senior year is kind of really tricky because part of me says take a break, because college is going to be really you're going to need to refresh. So there aren't a ton of programs that go into just recent graduates, but I will say on that BATS websites there are some that do, and so I would still recommend. And the other part about this, it was much easier in when we're in person, but emailing university professors, especially. So we're a part of the UC system, Stanford, all of the colleges that might be around you. If you find a scientist that is of interest, I'd say more so on universities than the national labs, more so just because we have certain restrictions on who can come on site. It's much easier, and they have certain programs in place for students to do research on campuses, college campuses. So if you do see a scientist or a research lab that you're really interested in, feel free to email them and say, hey, could I work for you this summer? And see if they would be willing. Some of them do have some funding to support support students, and some of them do welcome high school students in for the summer. And so that's where I would say really focus on universities, especially if you are 18, because also that takes a little bit of liability away because you're no longer a minor, so you can do certain things and have certain responsibilities that you wouldn't have if you were 17.
Thank you so much, Faith. And before we turn it over to Erin and Rebecca for the college internships, just a quick question. And maybe this is also a reminder for Erin and Rebecca to clarify. Sounds like most of these internships are for summer and not necessarily in the spring.
Yes, most of these were for summer internships, and because applications for summer typically open right now. So January and February are when applications open for summer. Usually for spring, they'll open in the fall. And so it's kind of the cycle of you apply for spring stuff in the fall, summer stuff in the spring or winter. Just because we need a lot of time in order to make sure we get applications out, select students, and prepare for them to come in within those next couple of months. So yes, most of these are summer. Some of these go throughout the year though. So like the Exploratorium, their applications are due November 9th, but then the students work throughout the year. And they are, and the Exploratorium Explainers program is a paid position. So something like that goes throughout the full year. So there are a few who have throughout the full year, and there's most that I mentioned today are summer programs.
Very good. Thank you again, Faith. And again, we will have an opportunity to ask more questions towards the end of today's session. And now I would like to turn it over to Erin and Rebecca. Start by introducing yourselves.
Sure. So my name is Erin Coley, and I am the manager of our workforce attraction and recruiting team. And I also am a SAGE volunteer for the last 2 years. So I was actually one of the SAGE guides this past year. So super excited to see a couple of my cohort, if you will, that have joined today. And then I'll go ahead and Rebecca, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Rebecca Flores, and I am the intern program administrator for all internship programs at SLAC.
So can people see my slides?
Yes.
Great. All right. So we're going to talk about more college internships, and we are including some of Berkeley's as well. Because so there's a couple different programs, and Rebecca and I are going to share how we do this presentation. So we are both Department of Energy funded, and Department of Energy, or DOE, not Department of Education, but Department of Energy, they sponsor and pay for a variety of programs. And so there are programs, these are inclusive of both SLAC and Berkeley Lab, both the Science Undergraduate Laboratory Internship, or SULI. And so this is a hyperlink, so you'll be able to click right to that site. So this is really focused on science internships. They do have an application deadline of January 12th, so just around the corner. But these are, again, college, so I know it's a smaller grouping here. And then we also have, if you're a community college student, they have a community college internships, again, application deadline just around the corner. We have a variety of programs that go through Oak Ridge Institute for Science and Education that are funded by Department of Energy in robotics, batteries, computer research, and these deadlines are end of January and early February. And all of these programs offer both a stipend, so it's $600 a week, and then also a housing stipend. So these are, you don't have to be in the Bay Area. You could be going to school on the East Coast, because we do, for us, we house you in Stanford dorms since it's just down the hill from us. The duration for these vary from 8 to 10 weeks. And this year, last year, all of our internships were remote. This year, we're likely to be remote or a combination of what I'll call hybrid, some remote and some on site. And then I also put a link here of a former intern, Anastasia, who participated in the SULI program and is now actually in graduate school. So that's a great program. So these, as we just sort of talked about, are summer programs. However, Berkeley participates in both fall and spring internships. Now they typically are for local students because again, these internships in a non-COVID world are on site, but they do have those options as well. SLAC unfortunately only participates in the summer because we don't have housing options for students.
Erin, before you continue, it just occurred to me that the research and applications and all that really start a year before you plan to do the internship, right? So all the information you're sharing is very relevant to our current high school students.
Exactly. Yes. And you know, Faith's slides on planning, I did not put in that slide, but I wish I had, because that's really key. We'll talk in a minute about what sort of an application might look like and what things you need to gather for applications. And those are you know, it's key information to have. These active hyperlinks will take you to those sites because each program has slightly different requirements. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Rebecca now, who will speak about non-Department of Energy funded programs.
Yes, thank you, Erin. So we have our non-funded Department of Energy programs, which can be both science related and non-science related internships. One of our most popular is the Limited Cohort Light Source Internship Program, or LCLS program, which this program will accept around 40 internship slots. So usually this past year we had around 36 to 40 interns for this program specifically. And application deadlines for the summer 2021 are rolling until May, and are usually also 10 weeks long typically. Our general internship program, so that's where we have, again, our both science and non-science related internships that it can either be through the summer or it can also be throughout the fall or the entire school year, just depending on the need. And for those programs, you go onto our career site and you type in intern, and that's how you search the different internship programs that we have available. And so you just apply through our portal, and same thing, application deadlines will roll until May, and some throughout the year. And then we also have our Youth Opportunity Program, and this program specifically partners with a nonprofit organization called Students Rising Above. And the Students Rising Above program serves first-generation college students from low-income communities who need the most support and financial assistance to achieve their college and career goals. And we hire students from this program specifically and pair them up with a mentor and a project. So applications will be through the Students Rising Above program. But for SLAC, it's called the Youth Opportunity Program. And those applications are also rolling until May. And then we have, so all of these internships are all paid hourly. Typically the duration of each internship is about 10 weeks, but can be extended, again, depending on the internship and the need. And then internships can be remote or hybrid. So most were all remote last year, but this year it could be the case that they can be remote or on-site. And then we have our LB&L internship programs as well that are very similar.
All right, so the application process is our next step. And the Department of Energy has their own system and portal, so we don't control that. To be honest, we only see them if you select SLAC as your first or second choice. And similarly, Berkeley would only see them if you select Berkeley as your first or second choice. And through their process, you do select which lab you're most interested in, and you get the option of first choice and second choice. And for them, they're going to ask for a resume. I know last year we did a resume tutorial, and we can do that again. They will ask for transcripts. They will also ask for recommendation letters. Faith's mentioned about, making sure that the person who's doing the recommendation actually knows you and knows you well is very key. The DOE programs have a GPA requirement of 3.0, and right now it's for sophomores through seniors. We're hoping that it'll get changed in 2022 to allow freshmen, but at this point that's their requirement. And you have to be a US citizen or a permanent resident to apply to those programs. For SLAC, Rebecca's going to cover that.
Yeah.
Oof, I almost forgot that.
No worries. So our SLAC application process is through our portal. So you would just go to the SLAC career site to apply. Again, you'd search for the job, you'd search intern, and then on there is the job description, and then you hit the apply button. For those internships, we just need resume, reference, recommendation letters, no GPA minimum, and you must be a citizen, permanent resident, or F1 student to apply.
And so while, Faith mentioned as well, if you want to go on your family trip, you can. Our caveat is because all of these are paid, there are government regulations around being an employer in different areas. We as a part of Stanford are an employer in all of the 50 states, but you have to be inside of the United States to do your internship. So if you decide to go on a family trip to Savannah, Georgia, great, fine. And if you're going to be able to continue if we're virtual, but it has to be in the United States. And so the benefits, a lot of this I think was covered in Faith's slides, but they do really enhance your college applications, be it in high school or college. If you're going to go on to grad school, they're great for your job application. I know, and I put my recruiter hat on, when somebody's applying for a job in science, it's like, have they done anything in science outside of the course classroom? We want to see that they have hands-on ability. It is really great for gaining new skills and understanding, just as Faith mentioned, what you do like, and more importantly, sometimes what you don't like. And of course, there's all of these programs that we've been talking about, the majority of Faith's, and certainly the ones that Rebecca and I have been talking about, they are paid. And so it's always nice to have money in your pocket to do what you want. All of our programs, you do get paired with a mentor or a supervisor. You make really strong connections. They are people who will help you further your career in terms of applications for the next step of whatever that may be. So you can build a network with them. You build a network with your fellow interns. Even though we were virtual this past year, we have intern groupings on LinkedIn. People were able to still have socialization and get to know people from different schools. And, that those networks can help carry you forward. When we were talking about this and we had a pre-meeting, one of the things we talked about, most of my jobs in life have come from networks. Yes, I've gone through a formal application process, but if you know somebody inside, it helps you go further. So that's the end of our presentation. I don't see any additional questions, but if people want to come off mute. So in the slides, we're putting both Rebecca's and I's contact information. There is also another individual in our program who, oh gosh, that's a very good question. Ooh, one of our scientists. Does anyone know what this photo is in the photo?
Erin, can you please read the question because some of the students are on their phones?
Oh, sorry, thank you. So there's a question that just popped up is, what is this slide a photo of? And it is our standard slide deck, and I don't know the answer to that. So, but I'm sure one of our researchers or Molly might be able to answer that. No, Molly doesn't know.
Are you giving us a prize if we can know what it is?
No, it's just helping me out. That's the prize.
High five. Well, there is a guess, right? Didn't somebody guess proteins?
Yes.
It's actually, I think I'm pretty sure it's a visualization of a pump probe process where for the X-ray electron, where they're looking at atoms and molecules, and whenever you pump and probe, you increase the energy so that you can take better X-rays.
Wow, thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. And we do have a question from Nikki. Nikki, do you mind just speaking out? That way we can have a more interactive session here.
Yeah, sure. So do the letters of recommendation have to be submitted before the deadline?
So for the Department of Energy programs, they are submitted with the application process. Typically for the non-programs, they are submitted, you will often get asked to submit after you go through an interview. So it's going to vary.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And so back to Faith's comment about being organized and knowing what the process is, you'll want to click and make sure you review that for each of the programs and know those timelines.
Thank you, Erin. I'm going to put on my hat. I like asking very basic questions. So I'm going to ask you one, Erin. You mentioned stipend. What's the difference between a stipend and pay?
So both are paid. A stipend is you get a weekly amount. So you are getting that weekly amount it's sort of like a guaranteed pay, whereas an hourly is going to be based on the hours you work. So if all of these positions are considered in the HR world non-exempt, meaning they're eligible for overtime. So if you're asked to work longer than 40 hours a week or 8 hours in a day, you get extra pay for that. So that's the difference.
Very good, thank you.
Sure.
There's a lot of excitement about that photo. So so people can read the chat. There's a lot of links and you can make posters, etc. I have a question about something Rebecca said. What do you mean by a rolling deadline? What does a rolling deadline mean?
It just means we're accepting applications until May.
But so there's still a hard deadline, but you can submit.
I mean, it depends. It really depends on when the hiring manager is ready to fill the position. Sometimes it takes a little longer, and sometimes it's right within that timeline. But usually it's around May.
All right. So I have a question for both Erin and Faith.
Can I clarify that on just a little bit further?
Go ahead, Diana.
What that means, if you applied in February and the manager was ready to bring you on in February, you'll be able to start sooner. So it doesn't mean that the deadline is in May. That means that if you applied sooner, you will be considered sooner.
Correct. That's a great clarification. Yeah, the Department of Energy programs have very firm deadlines and then again, very firm start dates. Whereas the other programs we start people on a Tuesday and it's generally every couple of weeks we have interns start. So that's a lot more flexibility, especially if you're thinking about, if you do have a trip planned, you can often adjust your start date.
Thank you. So Nikki asked about letters of recommendation. Typically, they come from teachers. Do you have any suggestions as to what what other resource or sources of recommendation students can tap into, because teachers are so busy, they can only write so many letters of recommendation. Who else would be good persons to ask for a letter of recommendation?
So I can start and then Faith can join in. I would say, you know, if you do have a part-time job, especially if it's related to the type of work that you want to do, that's a great person to ask. If you have somebody of a faith community that you work with in either a work or a volunteer opportunity, they're always great people to speak to your character, especially if you don't yet have, you know, you haven't had a job. I mean, I started babysitting right before. That's not really the same kind of thing as a regular job, but that person was able to write a recommendation for me. So anything else you want to add on that, Faith?
I think that's good. Yeah. So you want to think outside the box as well. Like when we talk about, you know, certain characteristics or responsibilities or strengths that you have, you know, how can those people speak to that? So, you know, as Erin just talked about, you might say, oh, the person that I babysit for isn't, you know, the best person. But if they can talk about the fact that you're responsible, you manage time, you manage students, or you have cooked for them or done homework sessions and been a great communicator, those are all things you can pull out. So really think about the things that you utilize within the job and not so much the job itself. Same thing of, I in high school worked at McDonald's, you know, so that was like putting together birthday parties, and could I manage, you know, taking an order and putting fries in the bag at the same time so I can multitask, you know, so those types of things. I'm patient, you know, those are the things that my managers could say about me when they were making recommendations for college or summer programs. And so those are the things that you want to think about. And I say that also because I mentioned to Erin and Lloyd before, I am a product of summer programs like this. So all of my programs were through NASA, and I went to NASA Sharp Plus, and if that, I think I did not put NASA programs on there, but definitely look into NASA. Not that I kind of feel bad about saying that right now, working for Department of Energy, but look into those as well, because those were really influential for me to do research in high school. And so those actually gave me the recommendations I needed in order to apply to college. So it's really, really, you know, helpful to have these kinds of opportunities and to think about the people that you're working with right now. If you work at Foot Locker or McDonald's or Burger King or babysit, you're still getting skill sets that you need for the future, and those people can speak to it.
Can that Erin and Faith, I am so happy to hear that you're highlighting these jobs that we feel like are not relevant. Looking at resumes, especially interns or students, I mean, those are the jobs that really speak about sort of the spirit of the student. And I think it's a matter of making sure that whoever is writing that letter, right, can speak to that, right? So make sure you give them bullet points of what is it that you want them to highlight. Sometimes they're busy and might not really be able to think about it, but point to, you know, want you to talk about my responsibility or creativity or, you know, dedication, right? Just give them that extra help of pointing it out. What is it that you really need them to speak about? But what I also wanted to point out is your coaches, so if you're an athlete, can be great people to talk to, as well as your counselors, right, at school, if they know you well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a job or a teacher. It could be people that work with you in some other capacity. I think the only people to stay away from are family. I think generally family love you and will speak really well about you, and I'm sure they know you really well. And so those probably are the hardest ones and would probably be reviewed the worst by whoever is looking at your application. But anyone else outside of that who knows you well and can, it could be that your uncle that you worked for and, helped them build, something in their garage, right? That would be just as well, as long as they can really talk about some quality of yours that you want to highlight. Lloyd, did we answer your question, or would you like to add?
No, that's good. I actually would like the students to ask their questions directly now.
Well, and we have one in the chat. There was a question from wanting to know if there were any graphic design internships. And we have actually, through both our LCLS program and then our communications team, which is where graphic design's typically housed in an organization, marketing communications, we have had interns in the past who have helped with graphics or communications or science writing, those types of things. So what I'll call, tangential to core science. So maybe you're not in the lab, but you need to have a little bit of a science knowledge or background to be able to do the work. That happens as well. And then certainly on the design, both in a communications team and sometimes in different projects teams, there are internship opportunities there as well.
Well, thank you.
I'll say a similar, we're definitely going to look into, and Anna, thank you for bringing that up, because mostly I'm poking people and saying, hey, I think you do great work and it would be, can you take on some students? So I'll definitely poke our graphic design team and our creative services team and say, could you, take on 2 students to be a part of your team this summer?
Wow, Faith, you just gave an example of the student proposing the idea, like, hey, I have a strength in this. Do you have an internship for that? And then here's Faith saying, oh, let me find one. Let me know this guy could use an intern. So maybe, and that's actually what we're planning to do with Sage, is to develop more opportunities for all of our students. A question about when they apply. Erin, you had mentioned that's for a DOE internship, they can apply for an internship anywhere the lab is. It could be somewhere in New Mexico or wherever, Virginia. Does it help to let Sage know if they're applying to a SLAC or LBNL internship?
So the DOE, we truly have no control. We do not pick who gets accepted. And then when it comes down to the selection process within the lab, we do look at their past experience. So yes, somebody who has participated in SAGE, either at Berkeley or SLAC, would be somebody, we would highlight that, because then they know a little bit more about us already. Certainly if anyone is applying, feel free to let any of your SAGE folks know. Loy, Diana, they will all, Julia will let us know on the recruiting side, and we'll see if we can help, add an additional recommendation, if you will, to that process.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Erin. And you did mention, many internships and jobs are obtained because somebody knows who you are and what kind of person you are. Speaking to that, what kind of person you are, I'd like to ask some of the managers here who have had interns work for them, what would be a quality of a good applicant that made you pick that person as the intern to work for you?
I would say growth mindset.
And that's Michelle talking.
Yes.
Can you elaborate?
Well, what I mean by that is we're a very complicated lab in a very complicated DOE network and don't want to scare anyone off. What we really appreciate and what we really like is people who can learn. We realize that you're going to be handed situations where you don't know the answer. We don't know the answer a lot of time, but you have to know how to approach it. You have to have the perseverance to get through the challenges. You have to be able to take this great, big, vast program, like how do you develop a coronavirus vaccine, and be able to break it down and have creativity and have thoughts. And so having that ability, we realize that you all don't have a lot of experience. It doesn't really matter to us, but can you learn? Can you grow? Are you thinking? So that growth mindset part is a big deal to me.
I'm just going to speak for one of our scientists who worked with our apprenticeship program last summer. And he basically said there were a few students in our group who constantly just asked questions, didn't have an issue with if they didn't understand something or if they thought something was interesting, they asked the question. And at the end of the summer, he said, if that person asks for an internship next year, I will work with them. Not because I feel like they are super smart, but I feel like they're curious and they're not afraid to ask questions and start a conversation. And so a lot of people just want to hear that you're interested and see that you're going to have a conversation with you, just as Michelle is saying, that you're going to brainstorm, that you're not going to sit quietly and wait for them to give you everything, but that you're going to come to the table because they want to hear what you have to say. And that's really important to them. And so just that's a tidbit from one of our scientists who, reflected on his experience with our cohort last year, that he really loved when students just ask questions. And I saw someone ask about medical internships or oncology. I can't speak to the DOE program, DOE undergraduate, graduate, college, university programs, but specifically on the Stanford research internships, I noted that there are quite a few medical surgery related programs in that list. And so that list is in those slides that you'll be able to review. Just to cover that, not necessarily I usually say for Berkeley Lab, we do everything just before you get to the hospital and just before you put the person on the rocket, but everything in between, we probably have someone who's really working on that. But it goes to a few other agencies when you speak to getting the person in the rocket and going into the hospital itself.
We do have at SLAC, we have a fair number of joint programs with Stanford, just down the hill. So there might be opportunities with us. We certainly do work right now. We're doing some work on COVID. There's a variety of sort of, when you think about medical aspects of things, we are not touching people or those types of things, but we're doing a lot of analysis, data that you get from people. So you should definitely check those out as well. And whatever you apply to, I think Faith has said it, and I'm going to reiterate, you should be applying to multiple programs. And that's where I'm going to just go back to Faith's great slides about being organized. You're not just applying to one, and your resume and your application might be different, slightly different for each one based on what their requirements are and your background and experience and interest in those programs.
Well, I was going to add to the question about medical oncology and engineering internships. I think each one of these words is very broad. And if you think about SLAC or Berkeley Lab, right, we are a user facility where we have people coming from all over the world doing a variety of research. And I am certain that we do research in every single one of these spaces. And it's a matter of spending time and actually understanding what is the internship that's posted about. And so, and I'll pick oncology just because this is close to the research that I do, right? So if you think about particle accelerators, that's what is used for cancer treatment, very directly related to oncology. And we do have a strong effort on developing particle accelerators for oncology applications, right? And just understanding X-ray science in general is a way to get introduced into oncology, right? Because radiography and radiology is something that's used extensively in that field. So if that's of interest to you, right? If any of these are of interest to you, right? Spending some time and understanding the more specifics of what might be exciting, and maybe an internship is a way to do it, right? Kind of understand what is it that's exciting to you, or maybe what is it not so exciting. Yeah, that's just as a national lab network does do a broad range of things. And I think Faith is right. Maybe rockets is not exactly something we are working on, but that's probably the only thing that, NASA has, ownership of, and we do the rest of the stuff, right?
So Morena had a question. Do we still have to live in certain counties to apply if it's a virtual high school internship? That's probably a question for Faye.
Yeah, I mean, we will, like I said, I'll look into expanding to other counties, but for right now, just because not that I want to exclude you all, but at the same time, I don't want to say we're open to a larger range or radius. And then we get to next year and someone sees something that was advertised this year and we say, no, we're not, because we're in person and people have to be on site every day or on site 3 times a week. And so we want to be mindful of that, of thinking about what happens when we're back in person and making sure that we have similar requirements then.
So if there's a possibility for an exception, Faith, should they reach out to you just to check or maybe get on your private list? So it's not a public announcement that, oh, we're now starting to take anybody from Northern California.
Yes, I will definitely, if we make exceptions, it would be for this group. I'll say that now, but probably recorded, Julia. But if we make exceptions, it will be for stage students. I'll say that.
Thank you, we appreciate that. Oh my gosh, it's 11:59 and I want to respect everybody's time. And we did plan for this to end at 12 o'clock. So just before we close, I want to thank everyone for coming, but also a quick update for the students who come in different times. In 2018, we had 20 students come on site. In 2019, we doubled that to 40 students coming on site. But then 2020 came, the pandemic, and we were able to host 96 students virtually. And so now we have almost 150 SAGE alumni. So our group is growing, our cohort is growing, and we hope to continue to see that grow. We are now planning for 2021 SAGE. So if you're still in your high school or connected to your high school, please let your friends know. Applications will probably be open by February because we're still making some last minute changes now. Any other closing remarks, Diana, Julia, anyone?
It's really good to see everyone. I think it's always exciting to participate in Sage Live and connect back to the students, right? I mean, that's my fun Saturday.
All right. Well, thanks again, everyone. And like Faith said, keep asking questions, speak up, because that's how you'll stand out. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
I will now stop the recording.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to say I really appreciated all this information.